Hey, Ted here, welcome back. Today we're going to continue our series on introducing kids to whitewater. I'm going to show you the progression that we use to get Catherine to develop her role. She started fairly young, probably 8 years old or so, and now she's 16 and rolls pretty well. So just going to show you the progression that we use to help her get comfortable and to be successful in the water. So one thing I really like to do to start, and as I alluded to in one of the previous videos, is just get them out in kayaks, paddling around without skirts on, put a life jacket on, and just have fun. That way we get used to, one, being in the boat, and two, water splashing in, and it's not really such a big deal. You don't have to worry about getting stuck in the kayak. So before you start rolling, I found it really useful to practice just pulling the skirt. And first, we put these little practice golf balls here, orange, and zip tied them to the skirt loop because some of them, the one we had wasn't super visible. And so that made it visible and something easy to grab. And so first, practice pulling the skirt, completely upright, even on the shore, not even in the water, so you're sure that you can pull it off. And that develops confidence. And then once you feel comfortable, or once, whoever feels comfortable pulling the skirt, on dry land upright, then flip upside down in the water and pull the skirt. And do that a bunch of times, and sometimes make that part of like the end of the day ritual. Katie used to love doing that, and it was great because you got comfortable doing it. A couple key things here. Always supervise, having whoever's putting the skirt on to make sure it's right. A couple times, we were in the pool session one time and the skirt was on a little bit crooked, so it was hard, it wouldn't pull off. And so that caused a little bit of anxiety, with Katie when she was in the pool. And luckily we were right there and we noticed she wasn't coming back up, so we flipped her back up, right side up. And I think another time too, working with a kid and wasn't paying attention, the loop got tucked inside the skirt, and that's kind of terrifying. And again, nothing happened. We were there to watch, but again, it takes away from the fun of it and creates anxiety. And we all know that fear is a big enemy to kayaking. So, check that skirt, make sure it's all set, and practice both upright and upside down before we progress to the next step. So I taught Katie a C2C Role because that's how I learned. In order to break it down into components, I taught her first position, which is leaning forward with her paddle parallel to the boat, although she's not leaning too far super forward here. And then second position, when you get that paddle perpendicular to the boat. That way it's just easier to break it down into parts. All right, when you start teaching rolling, I like to literally be hands-on at this point rather than work and worry about the paddle. I really want to focus on the hip snap. And the other big key I always think is keeping your head down when you roll. So we started with Katie, who was, obviously I'm holding her hands here, and then we're working on having her plop down, and then here she's just hip snapping. So just focus on getting the hips up. And I, of course, try to tell her to keep her head down even more, which sometimes can kind of be a challenge. But then you gradually work getting lower and lower. So she's down, and I try to say, all right, keep your head down and snap your hips. And here she's doing a pretty good job. You can see her head's down, and that's good. And she pops right up. Which again, a little bit more here, and then I'm trying to have her push that head down, but snap her hips up, and she's up. Why I really like this is because it's safe. You're right there, and she feels comfortable because you're right there to pop her back up, and you can really focus on just getting the hips up and holding her head down. Here we try it just with one hand, down pretty low, and the head's pretty good right there. It's actually kind of staying low as we pop up. So to start this part of the progression, I would put her or tell her to get into second position with her paddle, as you can see, perpendicular to the boat here. And I just have her work on bracing. So she's going to pop the boat kind of over to the side like this and slap that water. And what I really want her to get used to is still trying to keep her head down, but using her hips to snap the boat up. And as she gets more and more comfortable, again, she's getting resisting against that water. She is leaning forward now, and she pushes those hips and get back on top of the boat. So still have her in this clip here, working on that second position roll, although here I'm trying to get her to go a little bit deeper rather than just sort of slap the water, actually go a little bit over further. Of course here it's interesting because she's going down far, and it's a great example. You can see her here, she's slapping back up, but she lifts her head. Right here, that head comes up, and this is a great example to show her too, that when that head comes up, you can see the boat stalls and stops coming back up, and now her paddle's too deep, and she goes under. Which will happen. Of course, at this point, she knows how to roll, so she kind of pops back up, and I wonder if she keeps her head down. Head down a little bit better. Still comes up a little bit, but that's a little bit better. So once you get comfortable, with that, that slap roll, I call it, that brace roll, you can get them a little bit deeper down and still kind of work that same technique. Here's another example of that slap roll from second position. The brace roll comes down, she's curled up, comes down, hits the water, and immediately pops back up. She's a little bit deeper in the water here, getting comfortable, and that head's still popping up a little bit, but not enough, and she's pretty strong to overcome it. Pretty good, I would say. Keep that head down even more. Okay, once she's got the feel of that sort of second position roll, can move on to this first position roll, which I think you ultimately, through the full sweep, you get a lot more power from. Also should say that when Katie was learning, I was standing right there with the kayak, and that way if she missed the roll, I could just help pop her up. It was good practice for T-Rescue, and at the same time you're not wasting time popping in and out of the boat, and it saves you right there. So we probably should have said that earlier. So here now she's going to go into first position, and she's going to tip the boat over, and of course she goes over, and she's got it pretty quick here, going right from there. Move this thing out of the way up there. And she pops that paddle down. And again, the head's still kind of come up a little bit, but pops right back up. So kind of work from that first position all the way through. And I like to have her work on going over both sides. So last time she went to her right, and this time she's going to her left. So kind of pops over that way and gets in that first position. Snaps through second position and right back up. It's funny when she first started, well, it's not that funny actually, because she was much more comfortable going right because she'd worked on, that brace slap roll. And even though the momentum is different, you're going one way then popping back the other. But now she's even stronger on the other side, which I remember when I learned, because just this one continuous motion. So if you go left and then come all the way around, it seems like you get that momentum going. But work both sides so you can get comfortable. Okay, then we work on what I like to call the thrash roll. Most of the time when you're paddling whitewater, you don't just sort of plan to fall over and get yourself in position. Most of the time you catch a wave or catch an edge, and all of a sudden you find yourself all discombobulated and upside down. So really like to practice that. So I tell Katie, all right, just sort of wobble around and then chuck yourself over and then find yourself in position and roll. So this is kind of what it looks like here. She starts, things, and just kind of chucks herself down, kind of all out of position, and then has to sort of regroup and snap that roll right up. So looking pretty solid there. So that's our progression. That's how I taught her to roll, and seems to work pretty well. And there are a million ways to do it, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other videos of other successful ways to do it. I'm not saying this is the only way or the right way. It's just the way that we did it, and it seemed to work. So hope it's helpful for you if you're learning to roll, or help you teach your young child in your life to get out there. It's a wonderful thing to be able to share with kids. So I wish you the best out there, and feel free to post any questions in the comments, and like the video if it's helpful. And until next time, I'll see you on the river.